For wherever you may go, I just want you to know I love you, my sweet Elise. You're the love.
I hope you're ready for some unindoctrination, because we've got it coming to you wall to wall and tree top tall tonight. Some of you might be wondering what that music is. Well, we have a great guest tonight, and there's a lot of things that you know about him, but I don't think a lot of you know that he is a composer of music. And of course, that is, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Stanley, singing, playing right there for you. And we're going to talk to Robert in just a few minutes, just waiting for him to get in the building. Not many people need a introduction to Robert Stanley in these parts, but it has been a little while since Robert's been with us. And there's been so many thousands of people that have come into our, yes, we are. Robert's asking me, are we on tonight? Yes, we are. Did I not send a link? So we may have had an error by the host. We may have an error from the host, but that's okay. It's not the first time it's happened, but we'll go ahead and get a link out to Robert right away, and we'll make sure that we get him in here. How am I going to do it without cutting you off? I'll do it this way. We'll open up a new browser. How about that? We can always do that. We're going to invite a guest, and we're going to do it right now. I thought I'd done this before, but hey, I must not have. So here he comes, Robert Stanley, and we're live now. Let me just put that in there for him. Live now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and send that to Robert. He'll get that. But most of you don't need an introduction to Robert Stanley, but during his passionate pursuit of modern and ancient mysteries, Robert has traveled to 59 countries in 59 years. That's pretty impressive. And his quest for unique ideas and information has led him to research and write about many controversial topics. His ongoing investigations have been featured on television, radio, print, and the internet, ladies and gentlemen. He was born in 1959. He's a native of LA, California. He grew up in Malibu. Great information on his website, which is unicusmagazine.com, about Malibu megaliths. You heard that right. In 2008, he moved to New England with his wife, his son, and his dog. 2015, they relocated to Hong Kong. And in April of 2019, came back to Southern California. Robert enjoys surfing, hiking, motorcycles, tennis, photography, long walks on the beach. Okay, I threw that one in. And music. And you just heard a little bit of Robert Stanley's music. That was my sweet Elise. And I think we're still hearing a little bit of it in the background. He's jamming back there. We'll let it go until Robert comes in. How about that? Sounds like fun. So we're going to talk tonight about the Shining Ones. And let me go ahead and talk about some other things that we've got coming up while we're waiting for Robert to make his appearance, because the host forgot to do what he's supposed to do and send a link. Tomorrow night, folks, we've got a great treat. We've got John Lamb Lash tomorrow night, and we're going to be talking about the Mandela effect. You've heard us talk about the Gnostic thing so far 3 times, but we're taking a little break with that. John had a scheduling conflict, but he was good enough to record with me yesterday, and boy, was it powerful. So the you know what? If you think it's annoying, then just get the hell out of here. I'm sorry. I know that I shouldn't even listen to these people, but I hate people that are idiots. So goodbye. Let me find that piece of crap and just get rid of that piece of crap. But anyway, my bad. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I got a little upset with a dumb ass, low integrity individual. But anyway, tomorrow night, Mandela Effect, 10 p.m. And we're going to look forward to that. And then on Monday night, I've got Alan Albert Allen III, going to talk about, he's a science fiction writer. He is a comic book writer. Going to be some really interesting stuff. And then Tuesday night, I can't remember if I might have to move Svetlana because we're going to have Richard Presser too from Nanosoma. I'm not sure which night. And just to make sure that we understand that, make sure you know about that. Nanosoma, folks, it doesn't heal anything itself, but it will, once you introduce it into your body, optimize your body and help your body to heal and to overcome anything. And I especially want you, if you've had the Fauci ouchie, or if you're around people that have had the Fauci ouchie, it becomes very, very important to get the Nanosoma. Go to jeffreydarty.com, click on the Nanosoma logo, and we will look forward to you doing so. What are you waiting for? Order now. Nanosoma is a amazing, amazing product. Now, we're going to talk tonight about the Shining Ones, and Robert was good enough on his Unicus magazine website to put information up about the Shining Ones. And as we wait for him to enter the building, let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of the information he's put up there, because I'll guarantee you, you do want to have a pen, you want to have paper, because it is very, very, sorry about that, it's not what I want. It's very, very dense information, and it's information that you're going to want to know and to understand. And let's give you a little heads up on this. This is the book. It's called The Shining Ones. And Robert asked, do you think you can handle the truth? If you answered yes, we invite you to go ahead and click on this book cover. Beware, though, Robert says, once you know the truth, there's no going back to living a life based upon lies. And when you click this, he's got a special page set up. It's the Shining Ones Archive. He's calling it an analysis of our ancient ancestors. And Robert is, in his opinion, is stating that this book that we're going to discuss tonight is the most accurate account of Earth history available to the public at this time. He provides a link to the PDF. We find out that Zecharia Sitchin was not entirely correct. And it's possible that both Sitchin and O'Brien, who wrote this new book, amongst others, had the vision to recognize the essential fact that there was a brilliant advanced civilization in the past led by the Anunnaki. And that's the correct translation from the Sumerian. And both deserve full attention and respect in the recovery of incredible history, free from man-made religious constraints and the constant abuse of adjectives such as serpent, which really should mean man, wise man or woman, and not snake or reptilian, together with Semitic and Aryan, which has been dealt with by Robert in the past. The Shining Ones are a technologically advanced, interdimensional race of builders of worlds. However, there were some Shining Ones, in Robert's opinion, that rebelled here on Earth and created chaos and destruction. They're called the Fallen Ones. And there's many books with this name, The Shining Ones. However, you need to get this book that Robert's featured on his website to be able to contain the insights that are relevant to our condition, creation of chimeras. But the work of the Shining Ones is encapsulated by the Tuatha De Danann. They did not sever connections with the world when they disappeared from the British Isles, but the Shining Ones were still present in Palestine when Gabrielle made her announcement, that's interesting, to the Virgin Mary, in which she foretold the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, and again in present-day Saudi Arabia, when Muhammad received the command Iqra, meaning recite or perhaps preach, outside a cave in the hills of the city of Mecca in 610 AD. So lots of interesting stuff, ladies and gentlemen, lots of powerful stuff, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll look forward to bring this to you. But right now, folks, I want to welcome back to the channel a guy that I'm very happy to call my friend. I've had the pleasure of meeting Robert and spending time with him. And in this genre, it's very, very rare to find, and Robert would hate me saying this, but it's very, very rare to find someone with as great an intellect and as powerful insight as Robert has. And to couple that, that's not so rare, but to couple that with an absolutely intact, in control ego is really a remarkable thing. He's one of our great teachers. He's one of the great, decent people within this genre. And I want to bring to you tonight my friend, Mr. Robert Stanley, a.k.a. Jedi Bob. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jeff. I like that blazer.
Thank you, Robert. You just missed a great rendition of My Sweet Elise that we had playing for the Open.
Oh, my God.
It was very nice.
All right, cool.
I thought I would surprise you a little bit, and the surprise was on me because I forgot to send you the link.
Yeah. So that was a nightmare, actually, trying to get onto this platform.
Was it?
Yeah, because it told me I had to update my Firefox browser in order to get on.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one click away. All right, I had to literally jump through digital hoops just to be here with you, but hey, it's worth it. So thanks again for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad, Robert. I really appreciate it. We have kind of brought people up to date from your website on the Shining Ones, that information.
Thank you.
And what I'd really like to do, Robert, is, usually this show's about what I think. And, of course, that's based on over 40 years of experience and learning, now almost half and half between the biblical text and the, across the spectrum of spirituality. But what we want to do tonight is hear what Robert Stanley thinks about this book, because when you say, hey, this is something you got to read, and hey, this is something that might have information we all need to hear, you've got my full attention, Robert. So I really want to just turn the program over to you, or the D program, as we like to call it, over to you, and let you tell us what you think about this book. And I'll interject with some responses and maybe a salient point or two. And if we have a great question in the chat room, but we just like you, if that's okay with you, to take it over and tell us about the Shining Ones.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've read some of that book, so I need to ask you first of all, do you think that that's a religious book?
I would say that it is not a religious book. Yeah,
that's what I thought too. Although the reason I'm asking is because I was talking to another talk show host the other day, and he said, I thought he was reading it, and I thought we would have a conversation much like this one. And he said, yeah, when I got to the part about angels, I stopped. I said, well, why? And he goes, because it's religious. And I said, it's the word just means messenger.
Right.
And the whole idea here is to strip the veneer away, the religious dogma off of some of our ancient history that's obviously been badly distorted or destroyed or hidden. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that, but I figured you would see the truth.
Yeah, to me, it's more of a book, like you said, a book about our origins and, a rethinking of some of the great Sumerian Anunnaki lore. And I think it's been a great, I'm just shy of 200 pages in, but it's been very interesting. It's been very enlightening. I can't say that I agree with everything that's in it, but that's not unusual. Sure. But it's allowed me to expand my thoughts, expand my thinking. So I'd say, no, it's not a religious book.
Okay, good. And the thing is that the guy who wrote it, even though his name is Christian, and he wrote it with his wife, Barbara Joy, he's not espousing Christianity at all. I mean, he uses every world religion or philosophy or mythology in order to make the case that our ancient ancestors were called the Shining Ones. Like you'd said earlier, Anunnaki. It is the correct translation from the original Sumerian pictograms, and it's not what Sitchin said about them coming from heaven, although that's probably true. I mean, according to what Christian O'Brien has said, they came from other dimensions higher than this one. But specifically, it translates to the Shining Ones, the Elohim, the Anunnaki, and so many other names or titles, really, is what they are. Just like I said, angel is just a title. Right. We use titles all the time for various hierarchies, like corporations or military or whatever. And there's different ranks within the hierarchy. And the same is true for the Shining Ones. And one of the things that I talked to you about off the air, which I thought was interesting, and in that book, and which again is a little difficult because some people have read other books by the same name. I think I found 6 of them so far.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it's just to make things even a little more confusing. But the bottom line is this particular one by Christian O'Brien is very unusual in that we're not just talking about the shining ones, so-called gods, angels, whatever you want to call them. Builders of worlds is something I like. The fact of the matter is that he and his wife, Barbara Joy, put together a very clear explanation of the heavenly hierarchy. And I know when I say that, people say, you say heaven, that must mean religious. And no, I would argue it doesn't. It's about the cosmology. And he specifically uses the Vedic cosmology, which I'm familiar with. And I tend to agree with as far as there being a source, the highest source level of information, intelligence, light, creativity. And then below a certain point, much like you have the sky versus the ocean, they're connected, right. Sure. And but they're different densities and they have different life forms. So below a certain point, heaven ends, and the lower realms, the way it's described, again, from Vedic perspective, is the lower realms begin at something called the causal plane. And from that, below that, I should say, is the astral plane. Then there's the lower astral plane, and then there is the physical plane. Also in that book, and I'm familiar with that. I'd read that years ago in the Autobiography of a Yogi. And again, of course, you can't prove it. You'd have to experience it. And people who've left their body and or died and come back typically talk about these things, or yogis that purposely do remote viewing. They have a very common description of these other realms. So what was fascinating to me, though, was in the book by Christian O'Brien, The Shining Ones, he talked about not only the different hierarchies and how there were literally multiple universes in the causal plane. There's multiple universes. In the astral, there's multiple universes. In the physical, there's multiple universes, which why not? Why wouldn't there be? I mean, if you can basically create anything. A God or whatever you want to call it, the source can create whatever it wants.
Absolutely.
But what blew my mind was, as I was reading that, and again, I know some people say, "Oh my God, it's 700 pages, Robert. I can't read that much." Well, don't you? Of course not. You can't read it all in one time. It may take you a couple months. If you read 10 to 12 pages a month, you'd be done in a couple months. 10 to 12 pages a day.
Yep.
You'd be done in a couple months. And I'm still like on page 500 and something and trying to, fully comprehend what is said there. But so I always thought that where we're at and what's going on here was a mistake. It sure seems like a screw up.
It does.
Most of the time. I mean, there's some really beautiful things, beautiful people, whatever, but it just kind of seems like somebody really messed up. So what it says in there, and I tend to agree with this, the way it's described, the cosmology, is that in the lower realms, that's where your physical form, even if it's not what we would consider to be physical, you're given a body, essentially, even if it's not as physical as this one. And, even this physical body it's mostly empty space, right? I mean, that's what scientists tell us. So in the next realms up, or densities, or whatever you call these other dimensions, we still have bodies. Well, all of those are issued to us by the administrators of the lower realms.
Fascinating.
Okay. Well, it makes sense to me. Why not? So it's like we are given avatars to come into these classroom settings. Yes, you can call them simulations, but the experiences are real. They're real enough. Like, okay, look, you can't fly a plane until you've had a lot of hours in a simulator, which behaves like a freaking airplane.
That's a great analogy, Robert.
Otherwise, when you get into the aircraft, you wouldn't know what you're doing. And so again, I'm just going to keep referring to this book, what I learned very quickly. In most of what I'm referring to here is in the beginning of the book. And I think it may be, I think the biggest challenge for some people is just going to be letting go of their preconceived notions or prejudices. Absolutely. Programming that has been heaped on us by the fallen ones. You mentioned that before I came on. That's a big problem, and we'll get to that. But okay, so just coming in as a soul. Now, our soul is created as a seed of light in heaven, or the source, whatever you want to call everything above the lower realms is, let's just call it heaven for simplicity's sake.
And one thing that really got me, Robert, got me right off the bat and got me interested and said, yes, I'm going to read this. Not only because you said read it, that was good enough, I would have read it.
Yeah.
But when I looked at how he handled the word Elohim and how he went through and proved linguistically, I'm all about the text. He proved linguistically that the Elohim does mean the shining ones. And I've been doing some work lately with John Lamb Lash and reading a bunch of different books. And the people that wrote that Old Testament would 100% agree with that definition of the Elohim as the shining one. So he had me right there because I knew that he was on a solid scholarly basis, and it's followed through so far in the couple hundred pages that I've read.
Yeah, and I actually was up very late last night looking at different. There's a treasure trove of related information over at the Pleiadian Library. It's called Bibliotheca Pleiades.
Oh yeah.
And I was searching over there for anything, every reference I could find about the Shining Ones, because other people have written about it, like I said, from different perspectives. So I'm going. You were kind enough to show my webpage at my website, unicusmagazine.com. I've created 2 web pages dedicated to this so far, but I get the feeling we could go really deep on this. And we should, because these are our ancestors, and we should know them. And there's a reason we don't. Again, we have to get to that in a minute. But getting back to what I was saying about when our souls are created, we don't have a physical form. We don't need an avatar. We're at source. We're in heaven, and it's completely different than when we descend into the lower realms. Literally, like a seed being planted in the dirt, and then having to come back up into the light. So, and that's a Gnostic philosophy. Other people have covered it. But the bottom line is this. When we, as I said before, when we come into the lower realms, the reason we come here is because just like a seed has, it has a lot of potential. Let's say it's going to be a tree, okay? Fruit tree. But as a seed, it's not perfected yet. It could be if in the right conditions. So this is why we come down from as a seed. That's why I keep using that analogy, because it's accurate. Wow. We come down. We choose. And the other thing is, and it even says in there, we agree to the rules of the realms, multiple rules of each realm that we come into. So like I said, it starts at causal, astral, physical, but I really believe we actually go all the way through. When we descend, we go all the way through the lower realms to the lowest realm, which is here in the physical. It's the most dense. It's the most difficult.
That analogy of the soil and the seed really works for me. I can wrap my head around that because we see it, and it makes perfect sense that we're kind of here in a garden, if you will, as seeds, growing, developing, and even the kind of layered analogy works as the seed grows up through the soil. We'll get to by degree, and you can't skip it, can you? You've got to do all the steps.
Absolutely. Just like if you're in a classroom setting, which this is in that regard. Okay. So I'm using different analogies. Now we're going to switch over to a classroom. A classroom is a simulation of real world, but it has rules. And you have teachers, you have administrators, you have classmates, and there's a lot of the big challenges are basically just getting along with your fellow classmates and your teachers, etc. So, and that's basically what's going on here, because we're all related. I've said this many times, and it's absolutely correct. We are related, but sometimes we can disassociate ourselves or disconnect, like what they're trying to do to us right now. The fallen ones are basically imprisoned here for the misdeeds, the crimes basically that they've committed, the laws that they broke, the rules that they broke. There was consequences for that, so they're stuck here, and they're treating us very badly. Not that, according to my understanding, is no.
Okay.
They're stuck here, and they're trying to make the best of it by making us miserable. You know what they say, misery loves company. Well, they certainly are miserable, and more importantly, they're criminally insane. They haven't learned yet. I haven't seen a whole lot of God, what is that when you go into prison? They try and rehabilitation. I haven't seen a whole lot of rehabilitating going on.
Recidivism, but no rehabilitation, right?
Yes, exactly.
I butchered it, but we know what we're talking about.
No, yeah. Anyway, so when we come down here, we know the rules and we agree to abide by them. And actually, one of the rules, as it says in there, and I think you probably heard this from other people, is we agree to forget where we came from. And what? Okay, I guess so. I mean, it's just like when a seed falls from the tree, you're done. You're no longer connected to that tree.
Right.
And yet we are all connected energetically, informationally. We're all connected. And that's one of the most beautiful things about it. Like, you know, what I know that's kind of a goofy thing to say I'm a Jedi, but actually I do know the Force very well. And I know how to use it. And it's not about swinging lightsabers.
No,
it isn't. It's actually, as I think I told you, maybe it was another talk show host. The Jedi are not there to defend the Republic. They exist to defend divinity.
Ooh,
somebody has to do that. Somebody has to do that because there's always somebody breaking the rules. That. Yeah, we know that there's some soul that will deviate and try to basically see what they can get away with.
And by the way, Robert, the Force is really a almost perfect, accurate translation from the Greek word Christos into English. The Force, the flow is exactly what it means.
Mm-hmm. The Holy Spirit is what you and I discussed too. And actually it does flow. And on the front page of my website, if you scroll down at unicusmagazine.com, you can see something called the cosmic web of light. Yes. And how everything is connected. And that's just on the physical realm. However, one of the other things that you and I discussed that I kind of briefly run by everybody here is scientists have discovered the sacred signal, I guess you call it, the voice of God, I guess is the way this one guy said it. Even though he was a scientist, he was also a preacher. And he said, you know, we found this quite by accident when we were sampling signals that we recorded in space. And this background signal has everything in it. It predates, you could tell, he said they could tell that it predated the Big Bang. It was actually the cause of the Big Bang and everything in it. Now, how could that be? Well, it's just like right now I am pronouncing syllables of letters to create words. Well, if I could say everything all at one time, that would be what we're talking about. It's like all the notes coming out at once. And now Absolutely. That would just sound like noise to us because I guess we're just designed to individuate everything and then kind of trying to process it that way. It's a much easier way to, you don't need as much processing power to do it like that.
Right.
But why is that important? Well, because they're abusing it. The scientists were told by their superiors, meaning obviously we're going back to the fallen ones again. Mm-hmm. They took that signal that they had isolated and they amplified it. And he said I sent you that file. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it. Yeah. So they were, by degree, they were finding out that this, you could create like well-being or health or even so-called miracles. And he didn't delineate or specifically say what that meant, but I can tell you what it is. It's all of the material that we see around us in the physical is actually what they call the platonic solids. And it's not solid, but what it is energy patterns. And the science of that is called cymatics. So every frequency, everything like, every carbon atom, it has a specific pattern. That's called a cymatic. And all of those are coming at us all the time. So think of it this way. If Legos were falling from the sky, and what would you do with it? You could build tons of cool stuff,
right?
Yeah, that's why I said they're builders of worlds. They know how to use this stuff. But at the same time, they are still on a lower scale, a lower ranking, even within the lower realms, the shining ones that came to this world to build this world and so many others. They're still learning they're here to learn.
Wow.
And so they learn by group activities. Obviously, we all do, but there's individual choices. The choices that we make and the actions we take is what specifically tells the universe where we need to be and what we need to do next. So one of the things that I found fascinating about the lower realms when I was really thinking about it was some of the descriptions, religious texts about angels are, they don't reproduce. They just do what they're told. Well, what might that be? What does that sound like? Artificial intelligence? Maybe?
Robert, would you equate the fallen ones with the archons of Gnostic thought?
Actually not.
Really?
Because it's mentioned in there that the archons are something separate and they're not in this physical realm. They make some of the shining ones could have been disembodied archon lords come here to really screw things up, and that's the other problem.
Ooh, that's deep, because the archons actually can't get here, so
unless they're invited, and the portals have been opened. We know that through ritual analog magic, usually through blood sacrifice.
I love that term, ritual analog magic.
Well, I'm prefaced it that way because they've also found ways now to do this using digital technology, the D-Wave computers with the time crystals and the CERN, the particle colliders and all that stuff. They've really come a long way. Again, though, if you look at the book, I know this world is wacky. But it's a classroom. So, you think about it, things have to get increasingly more difficult as we become perfected by degrees. Our degrees of divinity actually is what we're learning about and earning, because it's a meritocracy. That's one of the things I've really have come to understand. Even though things can be,
people what that means, a meritocracy. Sure.
The merit means you're judged by your actions, not what you say you're going to do. In other words, you really can't cheat a meritocracy because your record is permanent. Some people call it a Akashic record, whatever. So whatever we do individually is what determines the course of the next step, and so on and so on.
So what you do in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what you do here stays on your record.
That's a good one. Yeah, apparently so. And yeah, obviously, if you don't learn, if I don't learn from my mistakes, I will have the opportunity to continue making those mistakes as long as it takes. And that's the other thing I found what was just so incredibly beautiful about this whole thing. It isn't a mistake. Again, in the beginning of the book, it says that the lower realms were not just authorized; they were mandated. It's mandated.
Yeah,
it was a mandate from the highest source that the lower realms would be created specifically for the purpose that we're discussing right now. So that's not a mistake. It's obviously not so fun when you're going through the trials and all that stuff. But think about us again. Seeds have to struggle.
Mm-hmm. And another analogy: you couldn't climb a smooth mountain. You have to have some cracks. You have to have some juts. You have to have some holes. You have to have some things that are jutting out that aren't comfortable to be able to use for footholds and handholds. So we don't really want a smooth sail. We want something that teaches us and shows us. And like you said, it's a meritocracy. How can you find if you have merit if your merit isn't tested?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, again, why free will comes into play. Because, all right, so a lot of people have a different opinion about what sin means. And that's why I delineated on the second page of what I've created so far is that it is like this. It's doing something that is wrong, but you do it anyway.
Ooh, I love that definition. For
whatever reason. Now, obviously, there's various degrees of that. You could just be shoplifting, or you could be murdering somebody. It's pretty different, but it's essentially the same thing, because that's exercising your free will very badly, and there's consequences for it. However, the reason I had to bring that up is because this is something the fallen ones did. They were lower ranking shining ones here on this world. And they actually, in the book, they show that there's like at least 3 different levels of like administrators and scientists and artists and all this stuff. So the lower level ones rebelled, not in heaven, but in the haven on Mount Hermon and below, which was the Levant, or is the Levant.
Right.
So the thing is that when they rebelled, they said, we're not going to do this work anymore. You're basically killing us. You're working us to death. There's, and I always found that weird because I thought they obviously have technology.
Yeah.
Was it some sort of punishment, or I don't know, but the bottom line is they rebelled to their superiors, and instead of punishing them, they said, okay, look, we'll make a deal with you. We'll create a higher level of human that will be your helpers. Now, that wasn't the only time that they did genetic engineering. They basically seeded all life on this world and were gradually bringing it up, and that was the plan.
Robert, is there any more of that chimera life still living on this earth, or do you think they're probably gone?
No, the original chimera that the what do you call it, the fallen ones created. So let me go back to this. When they rebelled, and then the Anunnaki said, okay, we'll create basically Cro-Magnon. Homo sapien. They took the Cro-Magnon and they basically upgraded it to Homo sapien. The reason they could do that is because they'd already created Cro-Magnon. It's like, they did all this stuff, all of it. And it's not always the same group, by the way. Clearly we're talking about a multitude.
I like that.
But the other thing that was interesting is Christian O'Brien, he had 3 different scenarios, and one of them was that they couldn't have come from other worlds. They had to come from other universes, dimensions.
Right.
I think it's both, but that's just me. But the bottom line is this. They came here. They did this work. There was a rebellion. And so they created this 4th level of us, basically the Homo sapien. Now, I know Sitchin says, we were supposed to mine gold, but O'Brien says that, based on his understanding of the original text, which are pictograms, and this is very specific and very important. Sitchin was way off. And even Michael Heisler, when he comes in with his biblical interpretation of Sitchin's incorrect interpretation, both of those guys are off in the weeds, in my opinion.
Well, when the blind follow the blind, they both wind up in the ditch, Robert.
Yes, exactly. So, and like you said earlier, I don't think you and I both entirely agree with O'Brien, Christian O'Brien, but he's quoting a much more accurate original source of the original pictograms of Samaria. Absolutely. That were. I think he said it was translated originally in 1919 and then hidden away so we couldn't see it. And then instead they gave us these stupid cuneiform, which came much later. And we know what happens when you retell a story again and again over time. It tends to get very distorted, especially when people's ego gets involved.
Absolutely.
But the bottom line is this. So for whatever reason they created us, these lower ranking Anunnaki, Shining Ones, decided that they wanted to be totally in charge of us. So, like I said, they first started the rebellion, and then after we were created, they hijacked us. And they started having sex with us and creating hybrids or offspring with us. And here's where things got really bad. They gave us their technology, all of it. I mean, most of it. I mean, there's stuff there that we can't really get into tonight, but I mean, when we talk about like the book of Raziel, it was given to Adam after he was kicked out of the garden. For why would they kicked out? And well, obviously it wasn't according to this other book. They weren't. It wasn't just Adam and Eve. There was a whole group of them. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of technology that was handed to us at a time when we weren't supposed to have that technology. That was the beginning of serious crimes that were being committed by these low-ranking Shining Ones. And at that point, we would have to be calling them the Fallen Ones because they literally fell into a dark place. They took us with them, and that's when they started creating these hybrids because they weren't just content with controlling us. Now they wanted to create new freakish monsters, literally, and which they did. And at some point, the higher ranking Anunnaki Shining Ones said, "This is crazy. They have messed this up so bad. We have to wipe it all out and start over."
Do you think the lower ones, Robert, were trying to rebel, trying to take over, and maybe even trying to create some beings, create their own army, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, only to defend themselves, because see, this is the thing. They knew they were going to be punished. It says in the book of Enoch, they remember, they said, we're going to swear an oath to each other. Well,
that's right.
That same oath is still being taken in certain circles to this day.
So there are people that will, it's like you said, what's the definition of sin? So there's people that will do bad things and they'll make agreement. We know we're going to do a bad thing. We know we're going to pay for it, but we're all going to stick together.
Right. Yes. Supposedly there'd be some benefit to that, which is idiotic. Again, criminally insane. It's very difficult to wrap your head around it if you're not there. So, okay, where are we at now because of that? Well, this is what Satanism and Luciferianism is. It is, and I've got a link up there for anybody who wants to see what this is about.
Yes.
Masonry is the global front group for Satanism. And the inner core, I'm talking about the inner core of it. So they have this veneer, they have this facade. Why? Because they know they're criminals, and they know if everybody else knew that well, they couldn't conduct their business as easily if it wasn't basically hidden in plain sight. And this is why these blood oaths, literally to death, punishable by death if you violate the agreement. Like, it's like, I want to join your club. And yeah, okay, I understand. There is no sin. There is no such thing as evil. I can do whatever I want. And, we're all in this together, and we're just going to have a grand old time and do whatever we want. So that's what Satanism is. And again, Satan is just a title. It means adversary. It's just like Lucifer. It means light bearer. It's not one person. It's this entire group. I think there was probably couple dozen or more of them that initiated it. And I don't know how it got so corrupted down the line to say it's just this one guy in serpent.
That's a great point, Robert.
Well, but I know why they did it is because criminals never tell the truth. You know that, right? They always lie, and they lie about the lie that they're like, God, what's going on in Washington D.C. right now? And they're going to keep lying. Do you have
any idea on the numbers of fallen ones versus shining ones? Would you even want to speculate on that, or does it even really matter?
Okay, so again, I can only refer to the biblical version that says a third of them fell. But we're talking about a third of the ones of the cadre, the contingent that was here at that time, a third of them, because like it says in the book, there's the upper level administrators, there's the scientists, and there's the artists. I'm just paraphrasing now, but so you have these three levels, like any other hierarchy. And it's not to say one was better than the other, but for some reason, those that were on the lower end that were having to do this manual labor kind of lost their minds. They organized and they rebelled. And like I said, there was some sort of agreement. This is why you never make deals with terrorists. You can't, because it just encourages them to do more terrorism. So what happened was when they rebelled and then they created us, the Homo sapien, as their workers, they saw us as their servants. But the hierarchy of the Anunnaki said, no, you're supposed to watch over them and make sure that they mature. They're just children, basically. And what did they do? They they raped the nursery and gave us, like, if you go into a classroom and you start teaching sex and drugs and by the way, here's some weapons and and your parents are really bad, that we should get together and so anyway, they got punished for that severely. And part of that punishment is being imprisoned here. Now they can't leave. The other thing was, those of us that they had, what do you call it? Corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
We were killed. Actually, what they said was, we will cause them to kill each other right in front of your eyes. That's what it's pretty harsh. I know, it's like really bad, but somehow they induced that on us. Can only speculate what that is. So they induced us to kill each other, which kind of like what they're doing right now. And I don't mean the good guys. I think the bad guys are basically getting revenge by causing these so-called civil war or, divide and conquer nonsense. What do they call it? Race war. That's what they call it. That's
absolutely.
That's part of it. That's part of it. They also divide us up by religion, economically, you name it. Anything to make us weaker than they are, and they're pretty damn weak. And that's like I said, it's a criminal and insane behavior. But the bottom line is this: and the monsters were killed too during this flood. Whatever caused it, it basically wiped them out. However, the souls of those individuals remain. They didn't go anywhere. Yeah. Apparently, they remained here. So, as things were restarted, supposedly to proceed with whatever the plan was to create this garden-like paradise on this planet, which again, it's a very, if you think about it, if you come down, if you're a new recruit, you come into a situation where you have to do hard labor, and they were all about, some people have this weird impression that you could just walk around the garden all day naked eating fruit or whatever. No, that wasn't it at all. They're very much an agricultural society. Even though they have science, they have technology, a big part of existence is working with nature, in nature, with nature, to grow food. In the process, you're growing too as a soul, because like I said, we're seeds of light. It kind of makes sense,
right? But all of this information doesn't seem to. Well, you made a statement. What did you say on the website that the Shining Ones, church has tried their best to erase them from the history.
I didn't make that, Jeff. I just posted that. Somebody who English is their second language or something. Yeah, the church.
Do you think that's true that the church is trying to erase this knowledge?
Oh, absolutely. Especially the Vatican, because they know who's really in charge and that they are serving the fallen ones. The fallen ones created this.
In charge. If everybody knows that they're not in charge.
Well, that they're criminals. I mean, do you want to work for a criminal? I mean, this is kind of where we're at with the current government in the United States.
It is, isn't it?
The so-called deep state, shadow government, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's all based on criminality.
They're just aping the fallen ones, aren't they?
Well, more than that, they're worshiping them. It means to work for them, and they're willing participants. You see, and that's the thing, because they get rewarded for it. But they're also going to get punished later, but they don't care. That's to me, again, that's a form of insanity, to not care about the consequences for yourself and others. It shows a lack of empathy, and we can speculate at what would cause something like that, but it doesn't matter. In a meritocracy, if you do the crime, you do the time, basically.
Do they have any assurance of a certain amount of time that they're going to be able to get away with it before they get their comeuppance? Or, I mean, do they even know that?
So this is one of the reasons I came out of the shadows. I told you last year I was asked to. Sure. Okay, so from a Catholic perspective, when you ask for help from the angels of light, that's called an intercession. You're asking them to intercede on your behalf. I don't, not for me. Okay, I'm fine. I'm talking about humankind. And specifically, I knew this when I woke up one morning in around May of last year, that they were asking me, and I agreed, to get the message out that those of us who are still on the, is it the left-hand path? No, the right-hand path. I don't know. One of the service to others, basically. We haven't fallen yet. Those of us that are still intact spiritually, mentally, physically, we need to ask for assistance. That's what they asked me to do, was to get the message out. Please ask the angels of light, the shining ones, who are still shining, to assist us with dealing with the fallen ones, because they have been screwing with us. Now, look, you and I have known this for some time. We as a so-called New Age, with the so-called reptilians and the Greys and the Nordics and all this nonsense, it's so convoluted. Why? Because they don't want us to know who is the real masterminds behind this specific mess here. And that's all we really should be caring about, not something that's going on in some distant star system we can't even validate. This stuff we can and should know. We should know this.
Let me ask a tough question, Robert. We have, in my mind, probably because of my background and because I've seen so many people that are, they're always looking for a savior, whether it's the Pleiadians or Jesus or somebody else. How do we balance the divine, sovereign, free? How do we balance our sovereignty with asking help from other entities?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. It's like, why would you pray to angels? And I never said that. I said, we're asking for their assistance to help us with the fallen ones, because the fallen ones they're way more advanced than we are, and they've been taking it. It's like taking candy from a baby.
I get it. I've advocated it myself, asking for help from. And they don't even have to necessarily be benevolent. The old saying, and this is just me saying, not Robert, the enemy of my enemy can temporarily be my friend.
It's my friend. Yeah. Except this is okay, but let's take it a step further. The Shining Ones created us. They are our ancestors. And that was made clear to me. Remember, this is how you and I met. I said, I think I met Enki back in 1985 up in the mountains when I was having an out-of-body experience. I still don't know what his name is. All I know is he said I'm your father. I know he didn't say, now at this point, I know for a fact he didn't say, I am the father, because that's not how it works. It wasn't the monad, all right? That wasn't, I'm sure I was just in the lower astral plane, or maybe the astral plane, and I interacted with other souls there who I clearly knew, or, I still know them because we're all family. Right. But the bottom line is this, that being was so radiant, the light coming off of that being that said he was my father, I can see why they would call them the Shining Ones, because you may not see it in the physical always, but clearly in the other realms, they are incredibly radiant. And where's that coming from? Well, it's not a trick. It's not a technology. You may say it's a technique, but again, that's the force. But where's the force coming from? It comes from the source. And the source, you could say, is God, creator, heaven, whatever. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is something is generating all these frequencies, and it is a huge network throughout all the different universes, all the realms. It's there. It permeates everything and everyone all the time, everywhere. So when we connect to that, and I've told you before, if you want, I'll run it by you again. We need to increase our resonance and diminish our dissonance. Because the force is all about, unless you could talk about the dark side of the force is dissonance. To be specific,
and how would you define dissonance, Robert?
It's distortion. It's darkness. It always leads to destruction. It is unsustainable.
Got it.
Unsustainable. Okay. Now what most people call the force is pure resonance, meaning that it resonates with itself. It's coherent. It is all things that we know of as creation, meaning sound, light, and even the physicality. All that stuff is descending down into these realms from the highest realm, from the source. And the other reason why people say, and I heard Rex saying this the other day, that he was reading some Gnostic texts about, we live in a simulation. Well, okay, this is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So yeah, you could say it's a simulation, like I said, or a classroom, but it serves a purpose. And we're here. We freely agreed to come here, and more importantly, to obey the rules, and understood that if we didn't, there would be consequences. So honestly, having said all this now is just my long way of saying that if you really want to know who you are, where you are, and why you're here, you need to read at least the first 200 pages of that book, in my opinion. And I know some people are going to balk at that, saying, no, it's too much work. Okay, if you don't want to know right now, that's fine. But the time is running out. This is why I'm prefacing all this.
I agree.
Leading up to my point, because this was shown to me back in 2013, and I've said this before, and I have to repeat myself for people who haven't heard this. In 2013, I knew what the problem was. Yeah, we called them archons or whatever, these demonic entities that were parasitic and preying on us feeding off of the dissonant, negative, dark energy that we emit when we're hurting ourselves or others. So I connected with my father. I was sitting there in Rhode Island, and I was looking out of this beautiful scenery, and I knew that we're in a bad place, and I knew the problem, but I couldn't figure out the answer. So I visualized mentally, I visualized this shining being, Father, and I said, please, I need clarity on this. I don't see how we're ever going to resolve this problem on our own. And this has never happened before or since. Almost immediately, I got a message back, and it was like a little movie playing, but in front of my eyes. Mm-hmm. Obviously somewhere in my third eye I was seeing this information, and it was made very clear to me that waves of energy were going to be washing over the planet. And this was early 2013. And this is what my understanding, my knowing from that experience was: energy was going to increase on the planet by these waves hitting us, waves and waves of energy, which all that does is amplify our consciousness. Sounds simple, but so if you're in a dissonant, dark place, it's going to increase exponentially. If you're in a loving place of light and creativity, peaceful person, that is going to increase. And what's happening is these two things are amplified, is that they literally push each other apart. So, and again, part of this was when I said, how is this going to be resolved? This is what they were showing me. This is the answer. They were focusing more energy to amplify our consciousness, to literally separate the wheat from the chaff. And I know that's a Christian term, but right. It happens to fit, because when the fallen ones created, basically they planted weeds in the garden, there was a decision made. Do we wipe it out again? Or do we wait until they're mature enough that we can basically separate them safely, instead of when there's just little seedlings? And that was the choice that they made. And we're at that point. So they showed me between 2013 and 2022, which is going to be the end of next year, mm-hmm. everything was going to be revealed. Now, when I first heard that, when I first got the message, I thought, actually, they showed me too how people were going to freak out. A lot of people were going to freak. Some of them were going to just have heart attacks or just whatever. Not going to handle it well because we've been lied to for so many ways for so long that it's like we're heavily invested in the facade, the persona. I mean, right? We're not just doing this, okay? Everything about us is a mask. That's what persona means. It's the mask over the soul, our avatar. So as that's all stripped away, a lot of souls are just going to, they're not ready for it. And I don't know what happens to them exactly, but I know the rest of us are going to graduate to another level, another degree.
Robert, it's so amazing to hear you say that. And it just reminded me, and I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly before, but back a couple years ago, when we had the full solar eclipse in the United States, mm-hmm. There's another one coming up. And I got a very clear, distinct message, I thought, very similar to what you said. But I was told that we would have between now and the second of those eclipses, which will take place in 2024. So we both are getting similar messages. And yeah, I mean, either way, I think we are running out of time, Robert.
Well, yeah. I mean, for the revelation, again, it's Christians call it apocalypse. It just means to reveal. The revealing is absolutely happening. I mean, if you can't see it, you're just blind, or you just refuse to see it.
You do.
Okay, so again, what is the upshot of all this? Is that last year when I was given this assignment, I agreed to it. I didn't fully understand what angels were to us. I knew about the religious nonsense that has been crafted over the decades or centuries or millennia. And I quickly started to learn after I agreed to do this that there's a lot more to it that we were not being told. It was like a whole separate discipline called angelology.
Yep.
And as much as I thought I'd learned in a very short time last year and even part of this year, None of that compares to this one book that we're discussing tonight. That is the most advanced level of angelology I've seen, and I'm sure there's more like it that's hidden from the public. Because again,
Robert, does this kind of go to the constant abuse of adjectives that you mentioned on your site? Angels, reptilians.
Yeah, it's the criminals always lie, but they also tend to deflect blame. They're trying to get us to blame others for their deeds. And that's not going to work. I mean, yeah, you can fool some people for some of the time, but you can't fool everybody all the time. And ultimately you're just fooling yourself, or I should say they are. And or anybody that participates with them, thinking that they're going to gain some sort of benefit by being corrupt and cruel. And I mean, it's just, it's a level of insanity, man. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's an appropriate term. But okay, so the thing about it is, we have an incredible potential, and we're still just kind of just germinating here in a lot of ways. We're seedlings now. We're no longer seeds. I'll just put it this way. Having done a lot of gardening in my life, horticulture, whatever, I do know that plants need a lot of nurturing. And so this goes back to what I was saying before. Why would I have encountered a shining one who said he was my father? Because they're caring for us. Why wouldn't they? We're family. Don't you care for your family, especially when they're young? Okay, so they're very upset about what's going on. Now, when they asked me to ask all of the people that watch me or go to my website, when they said, ask all of them to ask us for help dealing with the fallen ones. I know that's a very convoluted way of saying just ask for help. No, it's not just ask for help. The problem, Jeff, is that a lot of us, whether we know it or not, have agreed to work with or work for the fallen ones. And because their system is systemic, it's corrupt. They created all the corporations, all the religions. They did all that crap to us so that we would be not just loyal, but
we're like bound to them. We're indentured to them. So do you think that by asking the shining ones for help, it violates our oath to the fallen ones?
And there's where the problem comes in. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. So you had contacted me a couple months ago and said, would you like to come on the show? And I said, no, I don't think it's time. It's actually dangerous for me to do that, which sounds weird, but you got to understand what we're dealing with here. It's a criminal cabal on the planet.
I stopped. Weird and Robert and Stanley no longer contradict. Whatever you say is fine with me.
Well, I mean, but how dangerous could it be just to come on a talk show? I'll tell you how dangerous that it can be when you're dealing with people that are criminally insane. It's not so much the fallen ones, it's those who serve the fallen ones can easily be manipulated to come attack me or my family because they want to shut me up. So they're not just deplatforming me. I knew I was good. Oh, that was the other thing. When I woke up that morning and I knew I had agreed to work with them on this particular thing, it's not that complicated, for intercession. That's what the Catholics call it, intercession. Mm-hmm. Please intercede on our behalf. Do something to stay the hand of the fallen ones because they're screwing up everything for everybody. And in fact, they want to kill us all. Anything and anyone that they cannot control, they want to kill at this point. Right. And they said this through the Georgia Guidestones and stuff. Through their human counterparts. So the bottom line is, I knew. They said to me, or at least I knew that they had communicated this to me. If you agree to work with us on this particular project, you're going to be kicked off the radio. Now, this is before everybody was being deplatformed. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think you and I and our mutual friend, we had a conversation about this, and it did happen. I was kicked off the radio. I mean, they welcomed me back later, said, "Oh, we're sorry." But the more I thought about it, I go, "Well, this is going to happen again." Yeah. It was already foretold. I mean, the shining ones aren't perfect, but man, they're not stupid either. They have a much larger view of things, much bigger picture. So they warned me. They said, "You're going to get kicked off the radio, and if you're not careful, you're going to get kicked off the planet." And wow. I was like, well, big deal. This is not I'm not here for eternity, but at the same time, I don't want to do something rash. I mean, there's no point to it's like you don't go swimming with sharks if you're bleeding. even if the surf's up. I mean, so
not more than once anyway, right?
No, yeah, usually not. But the bottom line is, I mean, I'm not reckless. So I heeded what they said. And when I got kicked off the radio, I'm thinking, well, what comes next? If I keep this up, I'm going to be in, who knows? Who knows? It's probably not good. So that's why I've been laying low. And I've told a lot of people who've contacted me, beside yourself, exactly what I just said. You know, I'm not hiding. I'm just not stupid enough to play on train tracks.
Absolutely.
Right. So the bottom line is this. I agree to that. I was playing defense until the tide shifted. The tide has shifted. I'm telling you now, they know the time is running out. That's why they're so damn desperate to do all this crazy crap to everybody everywhere. Now, they're probably not going to get away with everything, especially if we stand up peacefully, unite against them, lovingly unite. Okay, it's not about pitchforks and torches or firearms. It isn't. I mean, yes, you got to protect yourself, but honestly, the strongest thing, the thing they can't stand, is when we unite as lovingly as a family unit.
Wow, that's powerful.
Well, I mean, look, the whole thing about the fascists, is that it's a bundle of sticks, right? And you know the thing about being a single stick is, that's easy. You snap the stick. But the more sticks that you put together, that you unify as a unit, now you're not breaking that. You may dent it, you may try and burn it, but ultimately the strength is in unity. It's also this is a really tough test for us, Jeff, because honestly, I find that I'm losing friends. And as much as I love my family, sometimes I'm getting to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm blocking my mother because she won't stop talking about how evil Donald Trump is. I'm like, you don't even know who he is. Why are you telling me this?
Right.
Because you read it somewhere, or the news keeps telling you that he's evil. So that's where your mind is at. And I just I have a threshold right now because there's so much being revealed. I can't take it. Anyway, this is why I've come forward though. Tide has shifted. I'm on offense. They have nowhere to hide. Nowhere. Okay. And they cannot debate us. They can't stand the truth. That's why they're trying to silence or censor everybody that speaks to the truth.
Beautiful. So Robert, would you say it's accurate to say that right now it's the resonance and the dissonance are being very clearly delineated, and that we are now given a choice of which side we want to go with, resonance or dissonance?
Yeah, we're being forced to make a choice. That was the other thing that was shown to me back in 2013. Even if you're the most hardcore, brain dead, sleeping, drug addict, whatever, everybody was going to be forced to wake up consciously to see everything revealed if you can handle it. And most people, like I said, there's going to be a lot of people, in the way it was shown to me, they said, prepare yourself, because a lot of people, even people you know and love, are going to just drop dead. They can't handle this. Well, think of it this way. In electrical circuitry, when you have too much resistance, the thing just burns up.
Right.
All the circuits just burn up. And the same is true for our physical body. When you've programmed your body to think, my name's Robert and I live at so-and-so address and my number, and I'm all this, I've got all this bull crap that we've been programmed with. When you start to see the really big picture, it's just a flood, like you said, a flow of information and emotion that comes through you. And if you're resisting that, no, it'll burn you up. It'll probably have a heart attack or something. That's the way it was shown to me. So the thing is, it's not, we can't just keep doing this forever, because the whole planet's going to just basically die if they have their way. They want to kill, if billions of people only have 500 million or some stupid thing, and create all these different artificial robots and stuff. I mean, it's hell. It's literally hell what they want to do. So, but the time is running out. So that's why I am now sharing this information as best I can with the little time that we have left. And it's not just about me. It's all of us are being forced to see the big picture, and then make a choice. Which side do you want to follow? Because there's no sitting on the fence on this one. There's no sidelines for this game. We're all in it.
So if you don't make a choice, do you make a choice by default towards dissonance?
Yes.
So folks,
essentially,
if you think Robert Stanley's right, if you've ever had any trust in anything Robert Stanley has ever said, he's saying that this book is the most accurate account of Earth history available to the public at this time. He says our time is winding up, and I would encourage you to pick it up and read it, at least the first couple hundred pages, as Robert has said, and it will give you some new perspectives that will be a benefit to your life.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it. I mean, it's very accurate. I believe that it's authentic. Of course, there's interpretation like anything else in life.
Sure.
I'm not asking you to agree with everything that's in there, but just at least consider it. The implications are enormous, and it affects everybody. And it's one of the reasons it's been hidden from us. You've got to think about it. Okay, so this was the other thing. Why do they have to hide who they really are? Because they are guilty. They know it. I know I mentioned it before, but they do know. They just don't want us to know that they're literally guilty as hell for what they've done here. And the other thing is they could not trick as many of us into working with them or for them if we knew the full thing up front. You know, they basically sugarcoat it. They use these weird veneers and facades and stuff and bait us into it. Most of us are naive, but that doesn't forgive. I mean, honestly, if, as I said before, the choices you make and the actions you take are what determine. I mean, this all goes on your record, and that determines where the next step you're going to take, the next level you're going to keep going to, and that's completely on you. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying about a savior. They want us to believe that we can be saved from ourselves. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. No,
it can't, especially if it's a meritocracy, and I believe it is. It makes the most sense of anything. If this is a classroom, or even in nature, you know, if you screw up in nature, chances are you're not getting a do-over.
That's right.
It's very cut and dried, and it's also, I guess we call the word is organic, but at the same time, when you work with it, like today, I was in the backyard and I was cleaning the pool, and I saw a butterfly go by. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. Then another one came by. I'm like, oh, hey, you're very pretty. And I do that sometimes. I talk to birds and lizards. Don't ask me why, but this particular one, it came close to me. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You know, and then it left. And a couple minutes later, it came back, and it literally landed on the back of my hand. And I'm looking at it going, oh my God, wow, hi. And then I'm thinking, I wish my wife could see this right now, because I'm going to tell her later. She's like, yeah, right. So I'm just sitting there looking at this thing on the back of my hand. I'm just kind of just having a little weird conversation with a butterfly. And then I look up at the window at my wife's bedroom, and she's there looking at me.
Beautiful.
And I'm saying, oh my God, not only did the butterfly hear my message, my wife, I didn't yell at the window. I didn't want to disturb the butterfly. She got my mental message. Now, what does that mean for anything? It means that's the force. Believe it or not, That's a Jedi thing. When you're connected to the force, which is the source, some people call it the Holy Spirit or whatever, consciousness just flows through you. And you feel your connectivity to everything and everyone, everything. You know,
did you get a message from the butterfly, Robert?
No, I was just communing with it, actually. And that's why you think about it. Butterflies are very delicate. And what level of comfort would it need to have in order to land on my right? So what is that? So think of this as a diagnostic. I do. I think it is a diagnostic. Am I really resonant? Am I loving, peaceful? Yeah. I mean, because you have to be in order for that to happen. Mm-hmm. So that was like a huge, like, hooray moment. It's not even an aha thing. It's like, oh, I'm there. And it coincides with us having this conversation. this is not just another idle chat we're having, Jeff. This is us uniting. All of us in this audience are uniting, and more. We're going to hear this message that it's time. It's time for us to wake up and unite and move onward and upward to the next level, and not let these fallen ones inhibit our growth.
You really helped me too, Robert, because I just had a flash as you said that earlier in my life, and within maybe as recently as 3 years ago, dogs didn't like me at all. Dogs really didn't like me.
Sorry.
And now dogs love me. I drive down the road here. We have deer, and the deer will basically come right up to you. They do feel your resonance. They do feel your frequency. So thank you. You helped me catch myself doing something or being something better. And we need that every now and then. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Reality check, please. Yep. And that's the thing, if we're, the more we're just focused on the dissonance that comes through most of the channels on the, internet or television or even radio, so-called media, is very, very bad for us. And even stuff we can't see. They're beaming this dissonant garbage at us all the time, trying to keep us down. So that's probably the best way, at least that I know of in the immediate sense. Be around people that you love, interact with them, find a way that you can be at peace in nature, because that's typically the best way to connect with the force. At least that's what I've experienced. It's really hard to do in an urban setting.
It is.
It's very difficult. Do we have a minute still?
Yes, sir.
So I think I sent you this thing that had happened to me a couple weeks ago when I was getting just lunch at a taco shop for my family. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay. So anyway, for let everybody else in on this, talking about the Holy Spirit being in the middle of a city, even though I'm kind of not in a big town anymore. I'm in a good place. But so I'm just going there to get some tacos. And when I got out of the car, there was this old lady pushing a shopping cart, clearly homeless and very upset. And she was speaking with the voice of a very deep man. She was yelling in Spanish, cursing. I could tell. I mean, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I mean, it was pretty obvious that the sounds that this person were coming out of this little old lady was like really big and loud and deep and dark. And so I'm like, so that's what I said. Like, well, I'm not threatened by a little old lady, but the energy coming off of that body was just like, whoa. So I'm looking at her and I said to the entity, you don't belong here. You need to leave. And so like I walk over to the shop and it keeps going towards the gas station, and I'm standing there in the shop, and I'm standing there in line with the glass windows behind me, and I'm watching it walk away. Because I know it's a little old lady, but come on, it was that lady or that body was possessed,
right?
And so I'm watching it, kind of keeping an eye on it, and I'm going, oh, it's leaving. Like the next thing I turn around like that, they're right outside the window. I was like, whoa, okay. And they're staring right at me. And I'm going, oh, this isn't going to go well. So I'm just totally silent, but she or it, whatever, came in to the shop and started yelling at everybody, walking around the shop, yelling, cursing at the top of its lungs, cursing everybody. One of the things that I do especially when I'm out in public, is find a place of to increase my resonance. I always think of these things. It's like a mantra: love, peace, light. But it's more than that. Okay, love means contraction. The energy is contracting. Peace means there's stillness. It's like the axle of a wheel. No motion. Light is expansion. That is the Holy Trinity. Those are the fundamental components of creation. So, and I'm feeling it right now, just talking to you about it. When I allow myself to focus on those three things, because that's actually what I was doing that night when I went out of body and met my father, the Shining One. I did that. I was focused on love. And then I found myself going into a very peaceful state. The next thing I know, I was in the light, literally surrounded by the light until he came to me with his light. So I know that this is a formula that anybody can use. It's not trivial. And as I was standing there silently, I was blessing everybody with the Holy Spirit of love, peace, and light. And I could literally feel it coming through me like this and out into the room. And I was looking at everybody going, it's okay. It's okay. She's cursing you. I'm blessing you. It's fine. You're going to be good. You're good. And at some point, this little old lady screaming like a demon literally came over and stood shoulder to shoulder with me and just standing there cursing everybody. You're whatever, like you're fornicators and you're going to hell or whatever she was saying. And I just was as calm. In fact, the more she yelled and the closer she got to me, the more that the energy, the spirit was coming through me. And it was like, and then she left and I thought, wow, it failed. Whatever it thought it was going to do. I mean, yes, it kind of shook some people up, but the bottom line was it failed and I prevailed. I should say God or whatever, the spirit prevailed. And I thought, well, that was weird. I mean, even for me, that's like, okay, that's a pretty weird thing to happen. And you're just trying to get some tacos. But, well, I knew this was going to happen. You know, like I said, the energy is the consciousness is being amplified. And so we're going to see a lot more of this. And I did talk to some people in the shop and I was just like, they had no clue what was going on. They're just like, they could care less. It was like nothing had happened. Honestly, they were over it. And that's fine. But the very next day, about 22 hours later, my wife and I were in a coffee shop and having a nice breakfast. We're talking, and suddenly this lady behind me, in a loud but very loving voice, starts talking to the couple next to us, and she says, "I'm sorry, but I was given this gift a couple years ago, and I just got to give you this message." And she basically just like spontaneously just started giving these people a spiritual message, and they seemed to understand it. I forget what it was she said, and then she turns to my wife. I could tell because she's behind me, but my wife is looking at this lady and I'm thinking, oh God, not again. But I didn't feel anything bad going on. It was just like, I was very surprised to say the least. So now I see my wife turning her head and looking at this lady, and the lady says to her, "It's okay. It's okay. You can trust God. That's what you need to know. Trust God." And my wife's going, yeah, like this. Okay.
Thank you.
And yeah, well, okay. Yeah. Breakfast with benefits, you know?
Exactly.
But then she's still talking to my wife. She goes, "And over your husband's head, I see the word love. And there's white light pouring down on him." Yeah. And that's when I went, huh? I'm like, what did you just say? I turn around and I look at her and her husband. I'm going, oh my God. And I got up and she's like, oh, he's coming over here. He's coming. Like they didn't know what I was going to do. And all I said, I walked up to him very quietly. The three of us got together very, very close. And I told her what had happened the day before. And I thanked her. I said, you know, that really was very helpful. I consider that to be angelic, what you just did for me. And her husband reached his hand over. He touched my shoulder and he said, "Thank you."
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, this is weird. It's a good weird, but this was such a juxtaposition. Talk about polar opposites. Talk about, dissonance and resonance. It's like, whew, those things are so far apart. And yet, okay, what did I walk away with that? That was total confirmation that this is real. This is as real can be. And more importantly, I'd been asking, when can I go back out and share this information with everybody? I mean, when is it ever going to be safe? I mean, well, or do am I done? And that happened. And I thought, well, I guess I can tell people about that.
Sure.
But but that by itself, it's not really that important. I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of strange to say the least, but it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you have you put it into the context, the framework of the shining ones and the fallen ones. Then it makes perfect sense because that's the only game in town. That is right. So
you saw a manifestation of each within a space of
22 hours.
22 hours.
22 hours.
11 times 2, 22.
2 old ladies.
Isn't that amazing?
One was demonically possessed, while the other was angelically possessed. I'm like, whoa, man. Okay. Yeah, you're not going to see that on TikTok or whatever, but it's like,
yeah.
I have no reason to lie to you about that, man. It was real. My wife saw it. And the thing was, she was right. She was 100%, or the message that she got, the vision she was given was absolutely right. Because that, I told you, that's what I do when I'm in. I do it in private too, when I have a moment when I'm not like busy working or something. But especially when I'm in public, it's because here's the thing: if you wanted to be it's not even a defensive thing. If you want to shield yourself from the dissonance, increase your resonance.
Absolutely.
And
what's
what I told
saying, birds of a feather flock together. So if you start flocking with the right birds, you have the synergistic resonance that'll begin to build, correct?
Well, yeah, there's that. But also, like when I was in the taco shop with the little demon, the thing was, as I told you before off the air, you cannot fight fire with fire. You'll just make more fire. And that's what they want.
Perfect. So that's what you did. You did exactly right. You fought the dissonance with pure resonance, right? Pure love.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a flow. And yes, it's been compared to water. But what do you put fires out with? You dump water on them. And I'm telling you, it was flowing through me like crazy. It's the thing, and it's not okay. So this is why they call them the shining ones.
It's like Bruce Lee, right? Be like water.
Well, he said, move through like you're moving through water. Be like the water. Move, but leave nothing behind. Well, okay, that's just too much philosophy for me. I'm focused on the mechanics of spirituality are really pretty simple. They're just being withheld from us, and that's a crime. That's another crime against humanity on this world. I don't think it's happening everywhere, but who knows? I mean, in the lower realms, it's hard to say what different levels of difficulty people are experiencing, the souls are experiencing as they move through it. It could be far worse than this, but that's not the point. We're here. We have to deal with this. And more importantly, we need to help each other as much as possible without getting into this polarization. You know, if, I'm going to help you by, we're going to create a new political organization. We're going to pass a bill and we're going to do this. Yeah, right. That hasn't, even religion, honestly, yeah, fine. Go to church and pray. But you need to figure this out on your own.
Absolutely.
What you were saying before, when we talk about the blind leading the blind, most preachers, and I think you know this better than I do, even though my dad was one. Oh, actually, my dad is reading this book now.
That's great.
He's 91. He's reading this book. I got it to him just before, hopefully he'll live long time, but he still mentally has enough clarity that he could read this book, and he's having these epiphanies, and we're talking about it. And
that's
I'm like,
amazing.
Well, I said, and he's thanking me, and I'm going, look, no, honestly, thank you for letting me help you.
Yeah.
Because think about it, Jeff. This is what that old saying about it's better to give than receive. Why is that? Because when I help somebody else, I'm in the meritocracy system. My record is, even though I make mistakes, my record, that goes on my record. I get like bonus points for doing that. And that's not why I'm doing it. Okay. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you that's one of the, it's okay. You say it's reciprocity or something, maybe, but it's just a process. It's really automated. It's not God judging us or even the lower realms, even though sometimes they like to play that game on us. Like, here's the thing. When we're in school, like I said, we're constantly being, confronted by our classmates and and the teachers and the administrators and even our parents, right? What do you mean you got an F in math? What the hell's wrong with you? You said you were studying. Go to your room. You're grounded, whatever. So we're getting it from a lot of different angles. But, if you study, if you ask for help, if you work with others, like in a study group or a tutorship or whatever, you can gradually start to move up. And what you get is benefits, real benefits, not these fake ones like so-called Illuminati, satanic, whatever nonsense.
Right.
By lying and cheating and stealing, you actually screw yourself even more than the people that you have screwed over, because at least they can say, well, I didn't know. I didn't realize that they had a gun, or they were going to do anything to me or swindle me out of all my money. There's a dispensation for those people. But if you did wrong, and especially if you colluded with others and you're doing wrong, you screwed yourself.
You did.
Big
Robert,
time.
would it be too simplistic to say that we should try to make resonance our residence?
Yeah, living in resonance is the way of the Jedi. And you can read about that on page 2. It's called a book called, Date with the Gods.
Yep.
And that's actually where the people in Hollywood first heard about it and ultimately made this stupid movie called Star Wars, or series of, fictional events. The warfare is real, but ultimately the struggle is always internal. As souls, we really are our own worst enemy every time. Because if you even if you're faced with the worst situation, you can ask for help, and it will ultimately come to you. Maybe not in the way you want, maybe not when you want it, but it's going to come. It will come, because if nothing else, the Creator is benevolent. Creators are benevolent. They enjoy beautiful things. Obviously, that's what they do. And more importantly, they need an audience. I could create the most beautiful song or painting or whatever, and yeah, I'll enjoy it. But I actually enjoy it more if you enjoy it.
Absolutely.
If we can enjoy it together, it's like, oh, that's that's really cool. So that's the mindset I'm talking about. Because when you increase your resonance, ultimately, this is where you increase your radiance. This is the light is coming. Yeah. So it's, again, we'll go back to electrical circuitry. The less resistance or dissonance that you have, the more conductivity.
The more
conductivity.
Flow.
Exactly. The more flow, more Christed you are, the more divine you. That's a really weird word, but it's part of this. It has to be part of the discussion. We are not perfect when we come here, but we earn our degrees of divinity as we become more perfect as seeds of light. Gods, creators, created in the image. So again, our souls were created in the image of the one creator of everything. Our physical forms, whether our avatars, were created by these lower level shining ones. Not only in the physical, but the astral and the causal plane. So, yeah. And again, I've never seen it put together so succinctly as in this book, The Shining Ones. And I don't expect everybody to read everything that's in there, but if you have any questions or comments, I'm more than happy to hear them. I'll post them on my website at unicusmagazine.com. That's a free PDF that I found somewhere on the internet. I didn't make that. If you want to buy a print copy, it's expensive. It's like $75 US. I don't expect everybody to buy one of those. But at the same time, you can at least, if you find something, here's the thing, you need to share this information too while there's still time. If you find something of merit there, you have to share it with people that you care about, that you think that are open to this, that are ready for it.
Excellent.
Because this is, I know there's a lot of other stuff you can get distracted by right now on the internet and whatever. There's always some new scandal or whatever. Very sensational, but this is probably the most important. In fact, I know it is. I just know I've been looking for this information since I had that encounter with a Shining One myself in 1985 September, because I know they're real. I know they are real, and I know that they created us physically here. But I also know that they're created beings. I know they're created beings, and they're not perfect. And some of them are really, really not perfect. They've gone completely rogue. And that's the bigger problem. However, it was all permitted. And that's the really weird part about it, I think, is like, why? Well, somebody said to me, who's also reading this book, he's heavily into judo. He says, when you go to the dojo, you get your ass kicked a lot before you earn any kind of belt, or you can, you got any kind of swagger or inner whatever. You're going to get knocked down a bunch of times.
You are.
And the trick is it's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up and say, again.
That's what that great American philosopher Rocky Balboa said.
Yeah, that's right.
Robert,
God.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Powerful stuff. Your website is unicusmagazine.com. Any other places you'd like to leave people with, or anything else you'd like to point people to?
I don't have any real social media going on. I'm gonna try and mess around with Telegram to see if I can actually do some sort of audio podcast, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very leery about the social media, anti-social media, whatever is just a swamp, a digital swamp.
Oh, it is.
So I appreciate you letting me come on this show. I will post a link to this. Is it possible for me to post the link to this show on my site?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Please do.
So as I go forward doing shows like this, I'm going to put them up, but understand, even though I've only got 2 pages and this regarding this amazing topic and this amazing book that's free, I know that's kind of hard to believe. But it's developing, and I'll keep putting it out there as long as I can. I'm pretty sure I'm protected. However, I would ask you this, not just you, Jeff, but people that are watching this, visualize my safety. You could call it praying. Whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. Visualize white light around me. Just think of me as being safe and happy. And so I can continue doing this work for the benefit of all. And really, thank you, Jeff.
We will do that. 100%.
You pulled me out of my doldrums, my friend. You were like, Robert, you can't just give up. And I mean, I really hadn't. And I know I explained it to you, and you're like, well, don't take it the wrong way.
But I told you I was being selfish, and that you're one of the great voices, and we need you. Don't just go under a rock. Is sort of what we said. Yeah. And well, hey, believe me, I pay attention to what everybody says, and it definitely got me thinking about it. Is it? How am I benefiting anybody? Oh, more importantly, what I realized, Jeff, they're not just going to kick me off the planet. They're going to kill all of us physically if they can. They'll try. They're going to try. They're in the midst of a genocide right now. They are.
Okay, so just sitting in my room twiddling my thumbs is not going to help anyone. So this is my contribution, and hopefully it helps some people.
Absolutely. We will be envisioning Robert Stanley and his family protected, safe, happy, fulfilled, and we'll be endeavoring to get ourselves into resonance and out of dissonance. Robert, thank you. It was an absolute privilege. We've got to do it again real soon. It's been way too long. Just don't let it be that long again. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Take care. Take care, Robert. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Stanley, the one, the only, a guy I'm really proud to call my friend, happy to call my friend. And Robert and I haven't always agreed, and Robert and I have, been involved in things, just bystanders. And, it's just so good to know that, my wife is a great judge of character, and Robert Stanley is right on the top of her list. And he's just a tremendous blessing. He's a tremendous being. And he is somebody that, whether you don't, it's free. at least sit down and read the first few pages of it. If you like it, great. If you don't, great. But when you're in the process of going through your day and you think about this show or you think about Robert, say, oh, I just imagine Robert with great protection. I imagine Robert safe. And do that for me too, if you would, because there really are people that are crazy and that would like to do things to us that are not very nice. And we don't live in fear, but it's certainly the potential is there for that kind of a thing. And, we don't want that to happen to anybody. So let's go ahead and imagine peace, and let's go ahead and imagine safety, and let's go ahead and to use an old Christian word, confess it over one another, because I think it's very, very important. And we're really glad to have Robert. I have a feeling we're going to get to see him at least on a quasi-regular basis. He's one of the best, and I'm really thrilled to have him with us. So we want to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're going to take a few calls. So let me go ahead and throw this break up here for us. And this is our great sponsor, Focused Life Force Energy. Check them out, and we'll be back right after this short break to take your calls for as long as we can. Focus Life Force Energy. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, Late Night in the Heartland, and we will be right back after this.
2008, a mutual interest in consciousness.
Why is that so
low? Evolution
of
consciousness, both individually and for organizations.
We'd encountered an inventor who had been working on a free energy device for about 7 years before I met him. And he worked together with a small team, and they didn't create a free energy device, but they kind of stumbled upon a way to focus life force energy on a small location or an object. We combined our backgrounds. Jeff has a manufacturing and engineering background with his companies. I have a kinesiology background as well as a coaching background. So we combined these two backgrounds to create the service that you're able to enjoy today. We worked on supporting the planet in 2011 to rise in consciousness as much as possible when we first started experimenting with the technology together. Over that year, we refined it quite a bit. We did many global service projects which still run today. And that was the beginning of the service. It was actually intended just to help humanity.
And at the end of 2012, we celebrated. We did the work. We helped raise consciousness, we thought, and helped to support the transition that many people felt was coming in 2012. And then we started the company as a way for people to take this technology, this way of raising consciousness, and use it themselves in their own homes, and to also benefit the entire planet by having more and more people on the service. And our mission of FLFE, as we started the business, is to support the optimal conditions for the evolution of consciousness in an economized society, which means working and holding a job and being a householder, so to speak. And for us, rising in consciousness, supporting that evolution in consciousness, is really supporting increased freedom. That as we rise in consciousness, we see it as increased freedom, freedom to live our dream, to be all that we can be, to be free financially, to be free health, and to be free from limiting thoughts and beliefs or maybe patterns of behavior that we'd like to move away from.
And that's Focus Life Force Energy, folks. And go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Focus Life Force Energy logo or the FLFE logo. You can get 30 days for free. I recommend you just get it because it is great stuff and you will never, ever be sad that you did. And with that, let's go to the phone lines. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hi, hello. This is Joey.
Hey, what's up, Joey?
Hey, Jeffrey. Huge fan of yours. Love what you do.
Thank you.
I just wanted, thank you. Love everything you talk about, that diversity of topics and the fact that you're so brave talking about all these things and so knowledgeable. The thing I wanted to talk to you is I heard that you were going to do a show or doing a show on the Mandela effect.
That will be tomorrow night with John Lamb Lash. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. That's going to be awesome. I'll be tuning in. Me, myself, personally, I've looked into the Mandela effect very thoroughly. I find it to not be true at all. So, I'm very open-minded.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've debunked
I guarantee
the major ones.
I guarantee you that John is going to bring some stuff that you have never heard before about the Mandela effect, and it'll blow your mind. So I look forward to you being there tomorrow night, and I appreciate
Yeah,
the phone
I'll
call.
be there. I'll be there, brother. Thank you so much. I'll let you get on with your show. That was all I really wanted to say. I wanted to find out from you. Plus, I wanted to call you and just tell you of all your fans, we really appreciate you, brother. So thank you so much for what you do, and I'll get back to watching the show. I look forward to tomorrow's show as well.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. As my
Thank
green
you. Take care.
screen screws up. Thank you. Take care. All
Aloha.
right.
Bye.
Aloha. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Jeffrey, I missed you so much, and I love both you and Robert. It was a really great presentation.
Robert was really, really good stuff, huh?
Yes, and I've got about a week's worth of shows to catch up with you, but tech problems are the absolute worst, and really it was a learning experience for me, though. Like, it made me realize I was too dependent on technology, and I was getting frustrated with things not working. And really, I think the solutions now is exactly what Robert's talking about, is focusing on love, because that's the only thing that the Archon, whatever these things are, the fallen ones, they cannot create. They can only destroy.
That's
and
right.
Love is the only thing that destroys them.
And what they do is they create, and they don't even mimic, they counter mimic. So the things they create look like, in some instances, what they're trying to create, but they're actually inverted from what they're supposed to be. So it's just crazy shit, man.
It's a layered matrix is
It
what
is.
it is. What he was saying was a copy of a copy of a copy. And I would equate what he was feeling, that flow of being what people feel when they feel those negative entities, using that energy to draw people into the religious matrices and whatnot. I remember time dilation being a thing when I was in Pentecostal services. You know, you would feel that high, and you would lose track of time.
Adrenochrome is a hell of a drug.
It definitely is, and it's like I felt chills with a lot of what he was talking about tonight, in a good way. You know, like, it was similar to that feeling, but you knew that it was more divine and loving than any other message that you would ever hear from somebody else.
Absolutely. Robert really is a treasure. I'm glad that he's off of his self-imposed sabbatical and he's out there sharing information again. And I appreciate you calling, Brandon.
Yes, I would like to see him on more.
Well, I'm going to do my best to make that happen. Thank you. And it's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeff Daugherty.
Hey, what's up?
What's up tonight? It's Iris from Colorado.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am not schizophrenic. I'm actually a retired RN.
Good for you. I'm
glad. Pardon me?
I'm glad that you're not schizophrenic.
Okay, and I just wanted to tell you that I thought your speaker tonight was excellent. I connect with him on so many levels. And I just wanted to say what a great show, and you got to have him back.
Absolutely. I'll be on him to come back often. He's one of the best, and I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. Late Night in the Heartland, you're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Hey, Jeffrey, it's Get Dagger calling. My mind is blown once again. Great job. Awesome guest.
Good stuff.
Fantastic. And I'm glad to see Brandon's all right. I was so worried we hadn't seen him on here for so long. I always think the worst now, especially what's going on with me. So I'm glad that he was back live and okay. It's 100%. So that's awesome that he called. And I miss hearing his calls. He always brings the good, just like yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, Get Dagger, and we appreciate you very much.
No problem. No problem. Like I said, just listening to the positivity tonight makes a world of a difference, not just for myself, but I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody in the chat room and then in LNITH family. Just the positivity, we have to keep going on, because every time I'm looking, researching and stuff, it's just negative after negative.
Yep.
I went on a few other channels today, and it's just, I can't believe all the BS and all the crap that people are actually believing, and it's just nonsense. And I just keep trying. Right now, I've got less than 24 hours left on my Facebook prison sentence. So I'm going to keep sharing and just keep posting. I'll probably get another longer ban, but I don't care. It's just like, we just have to keep fighting these SOBs and just stay positive.
We do. And speaking of positive, I Am Monica 57 is one of the great positive warriors and positive goddesses. We really appreciate you, Monica. And thank you for sending the love vibrations my way and our way. And let's just do that. If you ever think about Jeff Darty, or you think about Robert Stanley, or you think about Cynthia, you think about Monica, if we ever come across each other's minds, let's just take that few, even if it's nanoseconds, and just imagine ourselves, and not ourselves, but if you think of me, imagine me in safety and peace and protection and thriving and being optimized. And I'll do the same for you. Don't imagine me naked. Imagine me optimized, or maybe naked and optimized. I don't know. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Darty.
Hey, how's it going, Jeffrey?
It's going
Hey,
good.
I'm listening to all this. And have you ever seen the movie Time Cop?
I have.
So what if they have that technology, and what if this Mandela effect, they've had the ability to go back in time for quite some time and take out people that they know would have made like a big difference.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, say, even if they were little children, right? What if that's our true, like, I don't know, these people with their technology. I know technology, it kind of, some people are like, oh, that's not possible, right? But the technology these people have, I think, would blow the average person's mind.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Well, keep that in mind. I really appreciate the call. It's interesting to think about. It really is. And tomorrow night, 10 p.m., we are going to have John Lamb Lash, and we're taking a little bit of a break on our normal subject, and we're going to talk about the Mandela effect tomorrow. It's Late Night in the Heartland. You're live with Jeffrey Darty.
Hey, Jeff, great guy, Robert Stanley. I wonder where he went. I haven't heard him for over a year now.
Yeah, he went on a little self-imposed sabbatical, and it's not as easy to do this as you think it is. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time, and sometimes you just need a little break.
And Jeff, I just want to tell you, I'm putting protection around you.
Thank you,
my friend. I'm putting protection around you.
I
love you. I love your show, and I love Robert Stanley. I love everybody.
Hey, we love you too. We really do, and I mean that. And it sounds kind of silly, but love is all that matters. And I appreciate it. I solicit your love. I solicit your thoughts and feelings and intention. Because when you're thinking something, it's like Jeffrey and Clayton were saying, when you think about me by quantum association, we're there. And when you put protection over me by quantum association, that protection is there. And it really kind of makes my eyes water a minute when I start thinking there's 51,400 or so that we know of. I think that number is way artificially low, but regardless, if we can just, and we think about each other during the day, if we can think of each other, and as we do, think about protection and think about thriving, think about optimization, we really, really can help one another out. And when you're starting to manifest that type of a high vibration, it can't help but raise the vibration of the entire planet and bring more resonance. And more resonance will drive out dissonance. I'm not sure where that yawn came from, but sorry about that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be with you tonight. I think we're going to go ahead and put a lid on it right there. I appreciate you all very, very much. The plans are progressing for heading on out to KYAW. And that'll be what we'll do is we'll have this show. Thank you, Jerry. We will have this show, and it'll go from 10 to 12-ish, and then 12 o'clock sharp on through 2 o'clock. We'll have Late Night in the Heartland radio. It'll be on the terrestrial radio all the way across Utah and like 20, 30 other platforms that are virtual platforms, and we'll give you the information to where you can listen. So if you can't sleep, if you don't sleep, if you're on the road, if you're in the doghouse, whatever it is, you can be with me. Probably not Monday. It's a little aggressive, but for sure the next Monday. So we're talking about Monday, May 17. We should be live for 4 hours Monday through Friday. That's 20 hours of podcasting a week. Can I do it? Oh, yeah. I think I can do it. I think it's going to be powerful. I think it's going to, I really see it being a real boom to this channel. And before I forget, I want to say thank you to Jessica for a great donation. I want to say thank you to Anthony for a great donation, and every dollar counts, especially as we're trying to expand this work. So thank you guys so very much for that. And I apologize that I sometimes forget to mention those for a little bit of a while, but thank you so much. And tomorrow night we'll be here with John Lamb Lash starting at 10 p.m. And I have a feeling that you'll probably see me between now and then, although we might go do some, make a little trip in the afternoon. So I'm not certain, but whether it's between now and 10 p.m. or if it's at 10 p.m. tomorrow, we will see you there. And always remember, you do not have original sin. Rather, you've got the potential for divinity. You've got connection for divinity within. And you don't have to go to somebody else's savior on bended knee, because part of that divine connection means you're meant to live sovereign and you're meant to live free. And it's time to unindoctrinate yourself and step out of that fear and guilt, blood magic, trauma-based mind control matrix that is Christianity and all organized religion. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, they call me. We appreciate you very, very much. And don't ever doubt that. And always remember that you are appreciated and that we appreciate your appreciation. And it's been Late Night in the Heartland. And I want to thank you for making my day. We'll see you tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget to go to Robert's site and check it out. You'll be glad you did. I'm going to go ahead and disperse that lemon